I didn't realize that when he would come home, and from the time he got home until the time he went to bed at night, and I had to start picking him up because I couldn't take the bus because it continued. So from the time he came home till he went to bed at night, he was wanting to talk about it. And my boy, who I used to be able to hear giggling and laughing in his sleep from the time that he was baby and the time that he was a toddler, I could hear him crying out in his sleep and reliving the trauma of the day. And I did not know that those are early signs of PTSD. And our kids are going through this. My son is not alone in this. Every time we're back. Every time I go to a park, a skate park, somewhere out, it's funny how I seem to now have these conversations. He's not alone. He's not special in this. This is something really tough that our kids are dealing with. So when I realized that, they say that the crack is where the light comes through. So I was cracking because it was impacting his life, my life, our life together. It was impacting my business. And so I thought, what if a client came to me? Never mind a client. What if I had an adult friend that came to me, or an adult colleague, and said, you know what, I'm afraid to go from my car to my office for fear that I am going to be tormented, shamed, demeaned. And we call it bullying, but it's actually all of those things. I'm also afraid to go to the lunchroom. I'm afraid to go for a coffee. I'm even afraid to go to the washroom. And so some days, if I can, I hold it until I get home. I'm afraid to go past the building because when I go past the building, even though there's nothing going on and I'm not in that building, I feel sick to my stomach. If I turned around and I said to that person, you know what, I'm so sorry to hear about what you're going through, but just try and get along. Or stay away from those people, or find somebody else to talk to, or here's a good one, lead with kindness. Don't throw the first punch. Or you know what? When people have been bullied, they tend to bully other people. If I ever said that to somebody who was an adult, they wouldn't think I was a good friend, they wouldn't think I was a good listener, and they would think that I was lousy at my job. And I wouldn't blame them. So I thought, in an attempt to be a good parent, not wanting to be a helicopter parent, I'm a single mom, so I'm trying to do the best that I can. In an attempt to be a good parent, what I was doing was invalidating his experience and dismissing what was happening to him and dismissing his feelings, and I didn't realize that that's what I was doing. So I really needed to get straight with what was going on, so I thought, okay, well, what would I do? First thing I need to do, because this is not just somebody else, this is my son, I need to get right with myself. And I needed to do two things. I needed to stop parenting him in terms of micromanaging him and sort of figuring out everything that he was doing. And I needed to be mom. I needed to be his soft place to land. I needed to be one of the people on the planet who knew him and trusted him and have faith in who he was as a human being, and to hold that vision really clear and strong in my mind. Second to that, I needed to step into a place of leadership in myself and mentorship for him, because I wasn't leading very well. I was scared, I was tired, I was confused, I wasn't sure what to do. And I thought, you know what, I need to get straight with me first so that I can help him. So I went back to the things that always worked for me, yoga and martial arts. I got centered, I got clear, I got integrated. And then I thought, okay, so now I can take a look at the problem from a little bit more clear perspective. So I thought, okay, so what do we need to do here? So let's start with the foundations. Let's start with the basics, internal and external environments. What can we do to impact change for him on those levels? Did you know that a good portion of all of us, but particularly our kids, are deficient in omega-3 and also deficient in magnesium? Now, my high school friend, Patty Hodnott, who's here tonight, she's a nutritionist. She could tell you far more about this than I know. But I thought, okay, so let's start there. That's something that I can do that can impact his internal environment. So I went to my good friend, Chantel McGuffin, and her wellness company, and she gave me this really awesome mango-flavored yogurt that was omega-3 supplement. Put it into a smoothie with his magnesium. We're off to the races. So I thought, okay, we also need to dial down with the sugar. We need to dial down with the processed foods. We need to dial up with the clean eating. And I think between having Mom on his side and really feeling like I understood her, at least I was empathetic, combined with those nutritional components, within 2 or 3 weeks he said, Mom, you know, I'm starting to feel better. The stuff at school is still the same, but I somehow feel a little... Of course we can. Yeah?
Sorry about that.
No problem. So where was I? Environments. So Charlene Dokebauer will have more also to say on this point than I do. But I started looking at other things in his environment because I believe that what we consume is what we become. And sometimes we're not really mindful about what it is that we're consuming, both in what we eat, what we take in terms of social media, what we take in terms of our conversations, the things we read, the music that we listen to. So I started looking around and, you know, we've got things like Fortnite and Call to Duty. And although my son wasn't playing those games at the time, he did Minecraft for 2 years and then said, you know what, Mom, I don't want to spend that much time in front of a computer. But most of his friends were doing that, so there was sort of an elitist feel to the fact that he wasn't part of that. But when we think about it from a neuroscience perspective, and neuroscience is, I'm so steeped in it in what I do, if we take a look at the logic behind it, so we've got these developing brains, and they say that our brains do not develop fully until age 21 to 25. So we've got developing brains. We would never, as good parents, put our kids into a room for 2, 4, 6, 8 hours at a time and let them witness violence. We just wouldn't do it. But somehow, I think we get a little bit unconscious. I might be unpopular with this perspective tonight, but here it is. You know, I think unintentionally we become a little bit unconscious about not realizing how we're training our children's brains. So if they spend that time in fight or flight, in survival mode, and developing that part of their brain, 2 things, they're really, really hardwiring that in. And second to that, they're not giving their brains a chance to move up the hierarchy to frontal lobe and executive functioning. And so what we have is the tail wagging the dog instead of the other way around. So I started looking at that environment and trying to figure out how I can work with that. So the other piece of the environment that I had to look at was his school. And he had amazing teachers and amazing administration. And I do not think this is a school problem, although I think it is a problem that the schools have. I think it is a cultural problem that our kids have inherited from us. You know, I think that our kids are born empathetic and kind and compassionate. You know, when my son was 2.5 and 3 years old, we had to go running for the remote because the music for the Save the Children ad would come on, and he had seen that commercial a couple of times. So these poor Biafran kids with their swollen bellies and their bare feet and flies that they're just so accustomed to having buzzing around them. And he said, Mommy, where are their parents? And so then from that point on, every time he would hear the music, he would start to cry. So I don't believe that we need to teach that to our kids, but somehow we need to teach them how to deal with this world that as adults I think we've created, and we need to sort of back it up a little bit. So I ended up, and this is how I'm going to wrap up this story, I ended up saying to him, the only other environmental change that I can help you with is we can take a look at a different school. And there was a new school that was built across the street. I was really happy. I thought when I'm in my outdoor office, I can at least look across the street and I can see the building that he's in and I can send lots of loving energy over in that direction. 2 weeks before we had to make the decision during the summertime, I said, okay, so what's it going to be? Because I was really excited. He said, Mom, I have to go back. And it wasn't what I was expecting. And I said, okay, why? And he said, because I'm afraid and I don't want to be afraid anymore. And the only way I'm not going to be afraid is if I go back and I face it. Every cell in my body was screaming, no, I don't want to put him through this. But I knew that I needed to allow him to be independent and have autonomy in that choice. Because it's his life. We're only stewards. As parents, we're stewards. We try to help to get our kids through. So that is my story. And I hope if I have any parents in the audience tonight that in some way